Hello everyone and welcome back to Suzerain. So in the last video, we got started off with my reign, my actual decisions and the things that I would start doing if I were in this situation. And again, I will continue to give the warning that, you don't want to get involved in the politics and stuff like that. This may not want to be the playthrough for you. And I will also apologize in advance if I offend anyone for certain things that I may say. But again, it's not really the intent. No harm meant. It's just meant to have a little fun here and yeah, jump into it. So, what happened last time? We did get things started off. We decided on the highway project because I want to go ahead and try and help out this particular region. And then there's also the issue of talking about the different allies and stuff like that I want to deal with. So that's going to be kind of hard to deal with. I'm still kind of going back and forth in my mind on how I want to do certain things because I am aware of what things are coming forward. So it kind of puts things in a different perspective, knowing what's going to happen to a certain degree. Also, there's also one other major event that's supposed to happen, and I think it's called Black Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. So Black Tuesday is a situation where I think I can't remember what's the actual triggers for it as far as technical wise in the game. I've heard various things, but again, I haven't really played it I haven't played this game a whole lot since my actual last playthrough. But I think you can't have below, if you have below a budget of -3, which I don't even know how that would be possible at this point. But if you have a budget that's -3, that's lower than -3, then you get what's called Black Tuesday. So Black Tuesday is supposed to be this event where there's this trade war that begins and everything turns to shit, basically. So basically, the major empires, if you want to call them that, Arcasia and United Cantana, they enter into a trade war that you get drug into, and it gives you -3 on the budget. So I think that was something the developer put in there in order to try and make the game a little bit more difficult as far as, pulling the country out of debt and stuff like that. Because in my experience, I really didn't have too much trouble as far as, managing the budget. I think the only issue I've really had so far is the triggers for certain other events. So later on in the game, you do get other options for things. I know one of the ones that I had in one of my playthroughs, I think, was universal, what was it, universal medicine or something like that. And in order to do it, I don't know what you exactly needed, but I know you need to have a pretty decent budget. Same way with taxes. If you wanted to cut taxes for both small businesses and large businesses and stuff like that, you needed to have a certain budget. So I don't know if that's actually going to impede it, and I'm not sure when Black Tuesday actually triggers, because I don't think it's even possible to have -3 that early into the game. But we'll see how certain things go. So I'll go ahead and jump into it. You already know what's gonna happen. We're gonna have the situation with the inaugural ball, and this is where Bernard Sirkos is going to be killed. And we already know how this plays out. Again, there's nothing major happening here, so I will go ahead and skip through all this. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop in real quick for this. So we have the interview this time around. I think it has slightly changed if I'm not mistaken, but let's see what we have here. So, do you plan on working together with the opposition parties on the expected constitutional reforms? So let's see what we got here. My administration will bring real change. Yeah, I'll say we're going to work with everybody. Mr. Richter clarified that as long as you hold your promises of democratization, they will support you on these issues to the end. What do you think about this statement? Let's see. Well, yeah, I welcome it. This is a challenge for us all. One more question. One of your first acts as president was to veto a campaign finance law that would have deprived small parties of public funds, while increasing those channeled to your own. Are we seeing the beginning of a more egalitarian administration? Sure. No political party deserves to be silenced. That's enough, ma'am, said one of my guards, while nudging the reporter away from me. A path through the crowd was now open, and we quickly made our way to the entrance of the palace, At the same time, a dozen fireworks went off. So nothing has really changed there. I have encountered certain ones that things were a little bit different, and I don't remember whether it was actually hostile or not, but I have encountered a couple different ones based off of certain choices you made towards the end. And also something else I didn't know is that apparently there are certain choices that you can make that decides what political persuasion that you kind of lean towards. And that also is kind of like a soft, or I guess a hard check to decide what issues and what bills are presented forward towards you. So for instance, in the beginning, you know, I'm poor and things like that, but also I went to school for law and other choices that I made, such as supporting Alfonso. So for instance, I think I already messed up in a sense because I supported Alfonso, whereas in actuality, I think if you support Tarquin Sol, that helps you more on the leftward side, because, you know, as kind of typical in these situations with you know, countries that are not America, things are a little different. So like, while Tarquin Sol is an authoritarian dictator in many regards, he's also very much a left-wing person, but also conservative. So you kind of see that like politics is very, very complicated when it comes to certain things in Swordland. So, you know, we'll see how it all plays out. Again, I'm still trying to stick to the left, which is more of my political persuasion, but we'll see how it turns out. So, more skipping. All right, so we just made it out of the inaugural assassination, if you will. Let's see what we got from Swordland today. Rayne welcomes Richter's words. President Rayne gave signals about a cooperation with Friends Richter of the PFJP ahead of the inauguration ball. Regarding the remarks of Richter about a possible cooperation to fix the current problems of Swordish political institutions, I welcome it. This is a problem of us all, said President Rayne. Richter has long been vocal about the democratization plans, but maybe his demands for constitutional change might finally become a reality if President Rayne leads a bill together with Richter's PFJP. And an MP has been shot, as we already know. I'm still tossing it around in my head whether or not I want to work with Caronte. Don't know how much damage he can actually do, because the only real major events I can see besides him just in his usual rambling with the, you know, oh, you know, we're gonna, you know, this is bad because traditions and, you know, I want to be a dictator and all this bull. I don't know how much he actually does damage wise. And I also know because later on in some of the other playthroughs I've ran in the past, you can actually make like a there's an independent news agency thing that you can turn around and do, and I've done that, and I believe it's mitigated the effects. Also, you can just straight up nationalize it too if you want to turn around and do that, but I don't know if I'll actually go that route, because the one time I've done it and actually haven't been cheating in the game, the one time I've actually done that, and it cost a lot of money. So I turned around and nationalized every single institution. I nationalized the mining corporation. I nationalized Swordland Today and the other two and stuff like that. And I think I had a budget of like -8 or something like that. It was pretty bad. Yeah, and I think by the time I got to the end of the game, it might have been like a -3 or something like that. And that's on top of the fact that I actually had help from United. Was it United Contana? It might have been United Contana or Arcasia. I can't really remember. But yeah, so it's going to be kind of iffy. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I might try and have a majority stake in both companies, but don't think I'm going to be able to actually completely nationalize it. But we'll see how things go, and we'll have to play a little bit of it by ear. But we really haven't got into the meat of the game yet. So let's keep on moving forward. So in our first bit of differences we have here, we have the economists. They're not very happy with my economy decision here, and they're pretty much not going to be the entire time. So here's their headline: the wrong economy. The government has made its decision to promote a planned economy, a decision which is based on flawed arguments of Solonomics. The economists believe in the free market economy for good reason. Now, before anybody calls us Arcasia sympathizers, we don't support the excessive form of capitalism Arcasia is spreading around the world like in Lesbia. Our belief is that a balance can exist where the government can support the private sector with government money. Business could take the needed Business could take the needed economic planning burden off the shoulder of the government. We disagree with the planned economy simply because you can't properly micromanage everything in a society where people need to be able to determine their own future. The sortest people don't deserve to be shackled, and it's sad to know that President Rayne doesn't think the same way. So yeah, we're going to be off to a lovely relationship, this time around, as opposed to the radical who is probably going to actually hate me or actually have a lovely relationship with me. But we'll see how things go. I've already went ahead and had the dinner with the family, and Frank blew up. Now we're just going to go ahead and attend the security briefing, and we will see how that goes. Now one quick thing that I was also kind of warned about too was that apparently when it comes to me being on the left, there are certain things I need to be aware of. So there are certain triggers for certain end-game events that you need to be careful of, and one of them is the issue with the military. And that's where I'm probably going to have the biggest problem, because the way I've already set things up is that the military is going to be a huge problem for me if I go too far to the left. So usually I would want to cut the budget of the military, but I can't do that this time around, because if I do, it's going to cause them to turn around and do a coup on me. Also, if I turn around and I praise the left too much in this country, that's also going to be a problem. And I think that can get me a coup too. So I need to be careful of that too. So I'm going to try, and as far as like the actual things I say in meetings and stuff like that, I'm going to try and stick towards the middle when it comes to certain things. But as far as the things I actually do, that's going to be more towards the left, because again, you have to be careful. This isn't like how it is in America, where to a certain degree you can kind of say whatever you want to and it's fine. The worst thing that might happen is, the media will definitely frame you in the wrong sense or whatever. I mean, look at what happened to Bernie Sanders and stuff like that. Whereas like here, the worst thing that could happen to you is you could die. So yeah, I'm going to try and be a little bit more careful. So in this particular case, at first I was about to say radical Sortland just lost a great writer for what? But I'll say political violence needs to stop, plain and simple. So just gotta play my cards just right, We'll see how things go. And the other thing too here is that when it comes to dealing with Roomberg, I think I actually am going to be a lot more peaceful. I actually really haven't thought about it. I mean, if I was in that situation, I really don't know. Like, I feel like on the one hand, I would probably be more diplomatic, but at the same time, I also feel like because Sortland is in such a dangerous place, you kind of do have to be a lot more boisterous, I guess you could turn around and say. Like, you can't just turn around and let countries just run all over you and so on and so forth. But we'll see how certain things go. I kind of also want to do it just because it'll give the military something to do, because in countries like this, idle military is a very bad thing. So especially where the military has so much power. So to a certain degree, I kind of feel like I would also be like, let's be, boisterous so we can turn around and keep the military from looking at us. And actually, that was one of the ways where I kind of avoided impeachment before. I turned around and started a war, and I was facing impeachment. But because there was a war going on, and I actually declared war against Roomberg, then yeah, they turned around and they were more focused on that. The impeachment trial was canceled because of the war, so they couldn't do anything in the end of the day. So I'm not actually sure if I can turn around and declare war on Roomberg while also turning around and diffusing the situation. I'm not sure. So, and actually, you know what? I think I will go ahead and actually be a little bit more boisterous when it comes to dealing with Roomberg, because I do want to experience some of the new content, and I actually haven't looked at the whole war situation in a while. So yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more militant when it comes to dealing with Roomberg, and we'll see how it goes. That also means I'm probably going to have to increase the budget of both the military and something else, but I'm probably gonna have to cut something. So, and it's probably gonna be education now that I think about it. So, yeah, already breaking promises. We'll see how it goes though. All right, so we just went ahead and made it through the security meeting, and yeah, this is gonna be tough. It's gonna be real tough. I don't think I've actually sat down and really, well, as far as like dealing with some of these situations, this is gonna be kind of tough because I realize now that like certain options are going to be locked off to me, and I'm not gonna have the options to do them. But we'll see how it goes. I think overall I should be able to pull this off, and I do plan on still allying with Vogsland, and I think I can pull this off. I think I can do Vogsland, and I can do Wayland. It's also easy money, unfortunately, for Wayland. I don't want to have anything to do with Lesbia, and I'll still pull off the deal with Agnolia, but I can only pull off a trade deal. I can't do anything else. I just have to pull off a trade deal. And I think that should give me everything I need in order to turn around and get into the United Content and Security Pack or wherever it's called. But yeah, and I think that should help me economically wise, so on and so forth too. So, and if the option comes up to take money from United Content, I will take that. So, because again, I want to get more into their good graces. But yeah, we will see how certain things go. This is going to be difficult. I'm trying to think whether or not I want to actually have the because I'm gonna need to fund law enforcement. I need to fund law enforcement, and I also need to fund something else. I guess with me, what else should I fund? Because ultimately it's going to boil down to whether or not I actually have enough budget in the process too. I guess I could incur a debt. I guess the other thing I could turn around and do is not have an infrastructure project later on into the game. But we'll see how that goes. I don't think I'm going to be able to do all of these things. Forward thinking. Forward thinking. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, because ultimately it's going to depend on how much Black Tuesday is going to hurt. But I feel like it's going to hurt a lot. So let's react to the unrest. The political situation around the country has escalated. Chief Strategist Lucien Galad has prepared several action plans that we can execute. What will we do to address the intensifying political climate? We can call for restraint on national television, visit affected towns in person, label all protesters as traitors, expand the police by deploying all recruits in training, or reject all the plans. I'm going to visit the affected towns in person. I feel like I actually need to go there and see what's going on and kind of present some forward leadership there and stuff like that. The police situation could, you know, turn into more violence and stuff like that because they're going to be untrained. We saw that happen in my last playthrough. I've actually never done the television address, and I've always felt like television address are kind of you know, I guess back in the day that probably would have been a good thing, but like nowadays it's just like meh, you know, we have Twitter and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like you need to actually go out there and be among the people. We are we are a populist president, so I am a populist president in this particular case. But yeah, go out and visit the people. Let's see what we have here. President Rayne talks to protesters. President Anton Rayne visited towns around Greater Holsword and Groony regions, which were heavily affected by the protests and riots that popped up around the country, triggered by the death of Sir Cos. He was seen talking to the protesters and listening to the concerns of the citizens. This sends a powerful message to Sorter's citizens that the government is walking among them and listening to their problems. Holsword is desperately trying to restart Sortland's economy after the recession, and this political unrest is not helping, said a Sorter scholar and professor of law at Holsword State University in Holsword. Okay, so that helped a little bit. And end of the day. I am not going to take the bribe from Walter Tusk. As much as I would like the extra money, this might kind of put me in a bit of a situation or a bit of a pickle later on. But yeah, I don't. I'm not gonna go ahead and take the money from him. So. All right, so now we have a couple choices that's popping up here. We have the economic relief plan. We also have to have a meeting with Marcel Caronti, and we have the finalization of the H3 highway contract. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and use the Sorter State Corporation in order to turn around and use them in order to do this. Because from my experience, what I've learned is that I've used Taurus one time before, and it ended up backfiring on me because of the workers bill that comes later on. So the workers bill ended up delaying the project, and on top of that, I had to pay even more money. So it didn't cost that much money up front, but later on it cost me a lot of money. So won't be using that. Whereas with the Sorter State Corporation, it's already baked in there, so you don't have to worry about it. And then of course with underhaul construction, there's the corruption aspect of it. So yeah, don't want to deal with that. So and as far as Marcel Caronti, I still haven't decided on that. Like because I really feel like that's a deal with the devil. I don't necessarily, as far as like later on goes with him wanting to do the whole thing with Walter Tusk, I don't really care about that. Sure, I will turn around and nationalize the hell out of his company. But as far as like dealing with him initially, I feel like he could be a problem. So, because all the things that we agree on is just not a thing. So, and I have to do that in the end. And I don't know if that's the only trigger for Marcel Caronti. So, yeah, because I kind of feel like he would turn around and screw me over later on. Because if I remember correctly, and I may have already screwed myself on that, but there was one, and I believe it was the last playthrough I did. One of the impeachment things that came up was about the stocks that I turned around and bought. So I don't know if that's gonna help me in this particular case. I might have to nationalize this corporation. So I might go ahead and not do a deal with Marcel. And it's funny because I think as many times as I played this game, I don't think I've ever not done a deal with Marcel Caronti. Yeah, I don't think I have. And if I haven't done it, I just didn't care. And then later on, I just nationalized the company and said the hell with him. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and not do the deal with him. So, economic relief plan. With the assistance of the National Business Council and the central bank, Simon Hall put forward a countrywide relief plan to mitigate the economic hardships that are being felt. We can either provide stimulus checks for people in need or bail out businesses under serious financial strain, or decide not to approve the plan. So again, if I was in this situation, I would definitely provide stimulus checks for the people in need, because this is this is kind of basically been the case in the United States twice now. We have the situation where in 2008, where the economy, the housing thing, burst and the economy flopped. And then you had the whole thing with the auto industry also flopping and stuff like that. And we bailed out the businesses. And look at what that got us. In the end, Ford is still finna turn around and, operate out of the country. And we just gave them all that money for no reason. GM is still struggling. A lot of these companies are still struggling. And we've gotten to this point now in this country where we just kind of just bail out businesses and stuff like that. And the businesses don't do anything or even help us at all. So I don't think that that's something that you should turn around and do. I think you really should provide stimulus checks for the people, because they're the ones that need it, whereas like the businesses, either they're going to survive or they're not. If you're really free market, then you would think that that's how they would operate, but that's not how they operate. It's just socialization for the wealthy, as Bernie Sanders likes to turn around and say, and AOC likes to turn around and say. So yeah, we're going to give stimulus checks for the people, and that should help I don't know if it'll necessarily help the economy, but I think it will help the populace more so. And then with certain other contracts and trade negotiations that we turn around and do, that should also help people. So that's going to be my main focus. Now, as far as later on, what we'll turn around and do in order to try and stimulate certain things in the economy, we'll see. I'll just have to address it as it comes up. But for right now, I'm going to provide stimulus checks for the people. All right, and the Economist is probably not happy about that. Economists, unemployment, and checks. The administration has fallen for populism and the idea that giving people money will solve the problems of the economy overall. It is hard to grasp where these ideas come from, especially when long-term job growth and employment is what this country needs to secure in order to have a stable economy. What is the plan here? People will be able to pay their rents for a few months and then they will fall into the same unemployment trap due to a lack of job availability or security. The businesses can't carry all the weight of the declining economy on their own shoulders and employ people without help from the government. The administration needs to reevaluate their way out of the recession with realistic methods. Oh, don't worry, I have some very realistic methods that I don't know if you're gonna like, but we'll turn around and see. I'm still muddling over certain things. I may or may not turn around and actually nationalize the corporations completely, but I think I'm just gonna have a 50% ownership thing, or majority ownership. I'm not gonna actually nationalize it because that would take a huge toll out of the budget. So we'll see. And over here, finalization of the H3 highway contract. So yes, there's a lot of talking in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. I trust your plan, Simon. I don't trust you, Lilius, because you're the reason why I'm in jail in my other playthrough. And I think I had to flee the country one time in another playthrough. So that worked out. Let's see. What will it take to stop the recession? Sure. I need you to get through all of this. Look at files. Yep. I only need to see one of these files, which is the Swordfish State Corporation. The respected Swordfish State Corporation, also known as the SSC, was founded in 1891. It is the main state corporation tasked with running the day-to-day construction services of our country. The SSC is one of our most trusted and honorable companies. They have served us a long time. I've worked with them on several occasions. It will fulfill your initial election promise of using a state-dominant planned economy to improve the bleak economic prospects. They have the experience and the manpower to pull off a project like this. Really, just pause for a second. Secondly, they are the only company to have worked in the England region out of all three corporations. The outdated construction methods that they use concern me. They are several decades behind. The experience they bring to the table is beneficial. I don't agree with the negative statements for the SSC. Their record clearly shows completed contracts with thousands of employees who have more than 20 years of experience. Let me see. I have settled on the SSC. Good that we are staying consistent to our economy strategy. Simon signed a certain section of the dossier and fixed his glasses. Very well, Mr. President. The contract will be awarded to the Swordfish State Corporation. Very glad that Very glad that you have made this choice. I can tell from my experience that we will be very satisfied with this corporation. The company will be notified today and the construction work will begin immediately after. All right, I think we're off to a good start. And let's go. Alrighty, so now that is done. Let's see. Construction begins for the H3 highway. Swordfish State Corporation has been awarded a 2-year contract for an extensive infrastructure project, subsequent design and construction work as part of the H3 highway expansion project in Swortland. In addition to the geotechnical ground investigation, SSC will provide the design of all civil structures, including ground retaining walls and earthworks for the highway. SSC said it could build the line faster than the deadline and at a much lower cost, according to a letter seen by The Economist. But opposition leader Richter had warned letting SSC build H3 would be extremely questionable. The H3 project involved the widening of hundreds of kilometers of existing motorway between Lechaven and Arvory, including an open tunnel nearly 3 kilometers long. The highway will pass from Linkerg and Arvory and later will be expanded to the Agnolian capital, Stallport. So yeah, there is that. Also, now that I think about it, I don't really remember how the different regions work in Swortland. Like, in the United States, we have different states and so on and so forth. And there's a governor for each state, and they are the executive over their state. Whereas, like, I guess you could say, like in most European countries and so on and so forth, that's not the case. It's more centralized than that. There's mayors of major cities and stuff, but I don't necessarily think that there's governors, so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's how. I'm pretty sure that's not how things work in Swortland. I'm pretty sure they just have a system where everything's a lot more centralized. Sorting today, I'm pretty sure you're happy about this. Risky highway project. The government has announced a new mega infrastructure project to help alleviate the symptoms of the recession. When the Minister of Economy announced the launch of one of the most contested construction projects in Sortland, a new highway from Lechava to the Agnolian capital Stalport, he said, "This project will cross the poorest areas of Sortland, developing the region, improving foreign trade and increasing access to employment." The contract for the project was given to the old and outdated Sortish State Corporation with the decision of the president. Mega projects such as the construction of ports, transport lines, including railways and motorways and power plants, typically cost billions of Sortish Rens. They are difficult to manage due to their scale, high levels of complexity, and substantial impact on communities, the environment, and state governments. The decision of such a vital project to be given to SSC should not have been taken so easily, as they suffer from an inefficient bureaucracy that often causes delays. The management of the old company is not based on merit but political connections. England has long been neglected as a region and was in need of serious investments in its infrastructure. While this is positive news, it is doubtful that the project was worth the money and time that it will consume. So as you see, the war with Sortland today begins. But I have plans for them. I do have plans for them, if I have enough budget to pull them off. All right, Marcel. Again, I won't be taking the deal with Marcel, so we'll see how this is going to play out. And I can imagine it's not going to be pretty. I've seen I do remember some of the headlines I've had dealing with Marcel before. Yeah, he kind of goes at you. Alrighty, let's go ahead and reject him. Mr. Caronte, I have to reject. Such a shame, Mr. President. And here I thought we were going to be good friends. It's a shame, really. Bye, Mr. Caronte. Let's leave. We left the complex and entered the car. Thought that would have ended better. He pushed it too far. The threats were unacceptable. Turn to Holsort. Alrighty. So now we have dealt with Marcel Caronte. I'm sure this is going to turn out well. And Casaro's doing his usual boistering. See what we got going on over here. The funeral of Bernard Surcos. So this time, in the previous playthrough, I didn't do it because, of course, I was a nationalist. So, but this playthrough, I'm going to actually do it. I would go to the funeral of him. There are very few people I can think of that I wouldn't go to the funeral of if I was president or anything like that. But yeah, I would definitely go to the funeral of Bernard Surcos, especially being that I am the president of Sortland and this was a member of parliament. No matter how much I may have disliked them or something like that, if I was on the opposing end of the spectrum, I, still would turn around and go. I don't necessarily think I would spink if he was on the opposite end of the spectrum or something like that, but I would definitely still go. So the death of Bernard Surcos has shocked the country, and his funeral will be held in Dyer among a large crowd of sympathizers. Surcos was not only a communist poet, but also an elected MP that had a voice. A state funeral has been organized to honor him. The question is whether the president and the administration will attend the funeral or not. Something I would actually kind of like later, like if I kind of wish that there was like an update or something like that would include that, but I would kind of like an update where Bernard could be saved, and maybe the person that's assassinated would be dependent on your political persuasion as the game goes forward. I would like something like that, just to see what it would be like if, let's say, if Casaro Kibner was assassinated, what would happen? Would you still go to the funeral or anything like that? Or what if oh god, what is it called? The Blutish party, their leader or whatever. What if they were assassinated or someone else? How you would turn around and react in those situations. But I can already just imagine how much trouble that would be. But I would like to see what would a Bernard Surcos, who is a very vocalist, vocal supporter of Melanievism, even though it's a different Melanievism, but he's very supportive of these type of beliefs. It'd be kind of interesting to see what it would have been like if he had lived. But at the same time, I can understand why that wouldn't be possible because this is a major thing in the game. So let's attend this funeral. Funeral of Bernard Surcotte, St. Dost, nearest cemetery. There. Dark clouds were looming over Daeron. They looked daunting as our convoy started approaching the century-old cemetery. It looked like it was going to rain, certainly fitting weather for a funeral. As expected, Bernard Surcotte's passing maintained its media attraction, and all of Swortland was paying attention to the ceremony, especially to what I would say in my speech today. Sir, we have arrived. Raindrops were running down the car window when Sergei opened my door and held an umbrella over my head. As soon as I got out, flashes from the cameras blinded me. It's okay, Sergei. I'll hold my own umbrella. As you wish, sir. He handed me the umbrella and started waiting next to the car with his own. Peter and Carl exited from their own cars in the convoys. They made their way over to me. Anton, Mr. President, I just wanted to inform you that the perimeter is clear and secured completely. There's no one getting in or out without our knowledge. Good work. Thank you, Carl. He bowed his head with respect. Good. If anything happens to Anton, you will have to answer to the First Lady. And trust me, Carl, you don't want that. Peter let out a laugh, which drew some attention from bereaved attendees. Yeah, Peter, please don't do that. Peter, you're being inconsiderate. You're right. Sorry. It started to rain. Several unintelligible voices were heard from Carl's radio. He stepped out to reply and returned shortly. We have a small problem, sir. Five to be exact, Red Youth members are here to attend the funeral. They apparently said they wish to pay their respects to their fallen comrade. Should we let them in? Yeah, sure. As you command. Let's head over. They are about to start. We walked towards the crowd circling around the grave. Everyone in attendance was wearing black in mourning. The rain started pouring heavily. Bernard's widow and daughter were in the front row, staring at the coffin with a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and above all, a cold, unforgiving sadness. Both of their eyes were very sad and swollen from weeping. Before taking my place to observe the ceremony, I gave my condolences to Bernard's wife and his daughter, who looked at me. She reminded me of Dina. When the religious ceremony was done, I was invited by the priest to deliver my speech. I took the podium. I felt like I had a lump in my throat. I couldn't get the daughter's eyes out of my head. Today we are mourning Bernard Surcotte, a father, a husband, and a loyal servant of this country. Towards the back of the crowd, I spotted the members of the Red Youth, wearing red shirts and black bands of mourning on their arms. They seemed ruling and were respectfully bowing their heads. There was complete silence except for the sound of raindrops. He was a true comrade, and he fought for what he believed in, his ideal vision of Swortland. In every step of his life, we must learn from him. Surcotte had a dream of a unified Swortland. In these next months, we need to fulfill his dream and band together. But hatred begets hatred. There's only one way to overcome this vicious cycle. We must unite against the evil of this world. I would now like to recite one of the poems he left us. They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Moment of silence, please. During the silence, all that was heard were the ravens. Some attendees started clapping, some crying. The coffin was lowered into the grave by the gravekeepers. After a couple of minutes, Bernard Surcotte was with the soul, no more. As we bid farewell to Bernard, I want to close with the words every sword lives by, a Morgna West Corps. Everyone replied, Vectern sis da. Victory is close. With applause, I stepped down from the podium. It was time to leave. The widow thanked me with a soft and defeated voice before we dispersed. On my way back to the car, I still couldn't get the eyes of Bernard's daughter, nor the faltering voice of his wife out of my head. Would Dina, Monica, and Frank look the same way if something happened to me? Peter put his hands on my shoulder. It was a good speech. I sensed only respect from his voice. Thank you. I mean it. I know you do. Come on. It's time to go. We've got work to do. He was right. We had work to do. So much more to do. I realized that the rain had stopped, and I looked up. The black clouds slowly dispersed, and sunbeams enlightened our surroundings. As someone once said, even the darkest night will end, and the sun will rise. Hope was still on the horizon. Okay, so we have attended Bernard's funeral, paid respects to him. And while I did turn around and say before that I wasn't going to lean too much into my speeches, I felt like it was necessary in that particular case. So, they are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung. Huge crowds of mourners, including President Rayne and other senior Sortis officials joining for a rare display of unity, poured into the heart of Daeron today to bid farewell to Bernard Surcos, the poet and politician who was shot and killed at the gates of the Maroon Palace after Rayne's inauguration ball. With hundreds of police officers in riot gear on duty and traffic barred on major thoroughfares, the normally chaotic section of the city took on a somber atmosphere. Malinyevis anthems played from loudspeakers along Freedom Avenue as Sortis citizens of various ethnicities stood shoulder to shoulder, many of them in tears. Others leaned out windows or over balcony railings to watch the procession. President Rayne gave a unifying message to all of Sortland by attending the funeral. He paid his respects to Surcos and met with his close relatives. Rayne also made an emotional speech that touched thousands of attendees. He finished his speech with a quote from Surcos: "They did not let us sing our songs. They are afraid of the dawn. They are afraid of hope, but our songs will be sung." And then we have Sortland Today. President stands together with the Red Youth. Bernard Surcos' funeral was held in Daeron today among thousands of attendees. President Rayne drew criticism when he agreed to attend the funeral. While the decision was not totally out of the ordinary, the fact that Rayne is giving support to a known member of Red Youth who promoted Malinyevism throughout his life is unusual. Later in the day, President Rayne was seen together with a group of Red Youth members, standing together and paying respects to Surcos. Nationalists who saw Surcos as a traitor heavily criticized the president's move, which will surely continue among the conservative wings of the United Sortland Party. Never would Sol have thought that his party would be led by someone who stands together with a communist who studied in the homeland of Malinyevism. Oh, you have to love how things are different when you're on the other side. All right. And this is the briefing on the current diplomatic situation. I don't think there's any really major choices in this, so again, I will skip past all of this. So I did kind of forget there was some important decisions in this. So yeah, this is the first in the series of escalations by Runeberg, and like I said, I am going to be a bit more boisterous because I think the biggest thing that I can see coming out of this particular playthrough is that I'm either going to get overthrown by the military or I'm going to get impeached. Both are very bad. So I'm going to try and I'm going to start a war with Runeberg. I think that's going to be just the basic thing that needs to be done here. It's unfortunate. I would like to be more peaceful, but I think I feel like any president in this situation, Runeberg is just being way too much of a dick. I'm sorry. I just can't see how in any situation you would turn around and want to be peaceful with Runeberg. Like I get it. There's some people that feel like peace is the way in every form or fashion, and I can understand it, but I just can't see not wanting to turn around and fight Runeberg because they do far too much and they've done far too much. Like it's hard for me to really see that. Like I can see, I think for me, if I was in this situation, I would probably go all the way up to, but not war. You know, I would definitely expose them in front of the United Nations, and I would definitely turn around and, you know, have military parades and stuff like that. And I would do retaliatory things, but I don't think I would go all the way up to war. But I mean, hell, if war broke out in this particular case, I think it would still be justified. But I just couldn't see me just turning around and being president of this country or any country and dealing with somebody like this and constantly being slapped on the face and just being like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know, let's send some diplomats there, it'll be fine. So, you know, I love the Veed Whiskey's character. I really do. He's probably the only genuinely good character in this whole freaking game. Probably Peter too, but he's also a dog, but still. But David is like the only one, but it's just, I'm sorry, like I understand what's, you know, where he's coming from, but I just can't deal with Runeberg's constant bull. So we're gonna close the Sword and Embassy and Dome, and it's only gonna escalate from there. And I am going to declare war against him later on. I am a little bit worried about that because the last time I fought a war with them, I got nuked. Didn't end well at all. But we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna also I'm gonna capture the spy, and well, if I live that long, I'm gonna capture the spy, and I will reveal to the United Nations that they have nukes and stuff like that. So we'll see how certain things go. Alrighty, so we are now out of the meeting with well, the diplomatic meeting. I'm sorry about that. And yeah, we're going to turn around and start working on trade pretty soon. I think the next thing we have is the Reform Committee meeting. So this is going to be actually setting up the Constitution. I will actually go over all of that. Let's see what news articles we have. Emergency on Enrica. That's nothing new. Let me see. Welfare issue of normal. I think we already did that in the previous playthrough. Let's see. We need democracy. I think we've also dealt with that. And Swordland closes consulate. We've done that too. So nothing really new there as far as the news articles go. So briefing on the results from the Reform Committee. As you remember in the last playthrough, that was not good at all. It was piss poor. And at the time I didn't actually know that you could work with the National Front Party. And that just goes to show you just how complex this game is. And again, I have never played a visual novel with this many little subtle things in it, and that's what really makes this game so great, is the little things like that. Because I always think in terms of just like, you know, I was thinking in terms of what a typical visual novel or something like that would do, but you really can't do that in this game. Like, you really come in with this idealized version of what you might do, and you think, oh well, if I min-max my stats here and there, this is how it's going to turn out. Nope, can't do that here. You really have to think carefully about your choices, and sometimes you have to make concessions, and that's how it works out in real life. You know, as left-wing as I can turn around and be, I know that I would have to make concessions in order to get the best possible outcome, and that's more important to me than getting everything I want. Would I love to turn around and get everything I want? Certainly. It's why I play Crisis in the Kremlin. I can do whatever I want to a certain degree. It's also why I play China's Mao's Legacy, because I can just do whatever the hell I want to with the government to a degree. But, you know, you can't do that in real life. In real life, you have to make concessions, and this is probably as close as it gets to certain things. I will say though, there was one time I was playing what was that, geopolitical simulator, and I did turn America into a dictatorship, and I think I ruled for about 40 years before I died. And I think I took over Canada and Mexico and England. I think England's crashed the game though, because yeah, I was trying to pull some Lelouch bullshit from Code Geass. Did not work. Anywho, different game, different scenario. So, reforms were slowly becoming the most significant expectation of my government. We would be changing Seoul's constitution of 29. Most people nowadays blame the constitution for the outstanding problems of the country. On the other hand, the reformists in the assembly had been getting louder about their demands. What I knew for sure was that I needed to do something about this encroaching chaos before it swallowed me. Meanwhile, Lucian, Peter, and Nia had been leading the committee to prepare an initial draft for the constitutional amendments. I was intrigued to hear their results. There was a knock on the door. It was Lucian. Good afternoon, sir. Lucian arrived exactly on the hour mark again. His punctuality could almost be described as obsessive. Yeah, I'm not gonna be nice to Lucian. Also didn't know Lucian is later on in the game, you know, the situation with Peter. I didn't know that Lucian was actually the anonymous tip person or whatever that let that whole thing out the bag. It makes sense because he obviously wants to be vice president. But I'm actually very surprised by Lucian because I haven't been betrayed by him yet. I do think that if your support gets too low, Lucian ends up joining Lilius if you get booted from the party, basically. So he took a seat at the table and took out a bunch of documents, spreading them on the long table. We should begin the meeting as soon as Miss Morgana and Mr. Vice President arrives. We finally have some results from the Reform Committee. How's it look? Well, the situation is quite complicated, but I'm sure we will make it work, just like we accomplished many things before. We'll go over the details regarding the new constitution in the meeting. A few minutes later, Peter and Nia also arrived. After a short chat, everybody sat down and took out their notes. I knew it was going to be a long meeting. There's a lot to talk going about the future of this process. Let us begin to tackle the points of contention. Mr. President, our committee meetings were really fruitful, and we already started working on the constitutional draft together with the reformists. They demanded a little too much, but I've had success with Friends Richter to create a realistic draft that could potentially go through the Supreme Court. A little. They demanded to rewrite the whole Constitution. The requests were definitely not outrageous, just not realistic in today's circumstances. Just because it wouldn't pass the Assembly, nonetheless, I'm glad that we are reaching common ground already. If we can reach an agreement with the reformers, we will be very strong in the Assembly to propose the change. Can we reach a 2/3 majority in the Assembly? I'm actually more so concerned about the Supreme Court thing because I know that it's going to be harder in order to get things through. To get things through this time around. That there's been an update. I know it's harder, but I don't know if that means the Supreme Court situation is harder because, in my opinion, that's already too damn hard. But you know, we'll see how it goes. If you can get Friends Richter to work with you on this, our only problem will be uniting our own party. We'll never be able to get NFP to work with us. We need the majority of our 130 seats in the Assembly to vote in favor. With PFJP's full support of 70 votes, we will easily surpass the needed 166. But it will be tough to unite the USP with all the divisive wings that have formed. We must make them follow you loyally. We did it before the election. We can do it again. Sorry. Alvin Clavin and his reformers wing would be supporting you. He already weighed in heavily in the committee meetings. However, the conservative will be tough to break. The influence of Soul is still living strong in the party. Do you think they can be persuaded? I'm sure it's possible, but regardless of my opinion, we need to persuade most of them to support us for passing an amendment to the Constitution. There's only one person who is key to make them back us. Gloria Torrey. She's well respected by the Soulless. She'll be our biggest obstacle in the Assembly, and her demands will be extensive. I also have reason to think she might be in Orso's pocket. She'll be tough to break, but we'll need her help to get the conservative support. Is it possible to pass the Supreme Court? They're the biggest obstacle. Even if we pass the Assembly, the Chief Justice will do his best to block our amendments. We need at least 6 of the 11 judges to vote for the proposal, but Mr. Hawker has enormous influence over the judges. We should reach out to judges in secret. Some of them might be willing to break rank to support us. Yeah, they won't. I'm not that naive. All means are to be considered in order to succeed. Neo was taken aback by the statement. Hey, look, I'm sorry. You know, as much as I would like to be optimistic about this is a corrupt country. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. According to the Constitution, I am a member of the Supreme Court, which I am just baffled by, which means we already have 1 vote. 2 of the judges are friends of mine and of similar opinion about the reforms. Consider them with me. So we only have 3 votes out of 11. 3 votes, yes, but I believe that Judge Edmonds can be persuaded as well. She and 2 other judges, Mr. Dalton and Mr. Merton. They weren't really blinded by the soulless ideology. Yes, those 3 don't seem to be working directly with the Chief Justice Hawker, If we can get to Isabel Edmonds, we might get the 6 votes needed. That's our best bet. What are the demands? We should run down each of the main demands of the committee and get your input first. Ms. Morgana can explain them further. We'll start with the first red line. The new constitution will fix the loopholes regarding the president's absolute veto powers. Even though Mr. Richter put on a whole show about why vetoes should completely be removed, the committee has almost unanimously agreed on fixing the loopholes, thus limiting presidential vetoes. My suggestion is to add a clause detailing the methods the assembly may override a veto with some sort of supermajority. One person should never be able to block the rest. Yeah, because that's kind of the thing we have here in the United States where like certain bills can get through, but then I think the way it works in the Senate is that any senator can turn around and block it. And then usually once it gets blocked, it goes to legislative to the legislative graveyard and you never hear about it again. So, and it could be something that everybody agrees on, but it just takes that one senator to turn around and screw things up. And there you go. We all have our Rand Pauls and Ted Cruz's, so you know how that works out. Let's see. Let's see. The loopholes give the president too much power. Sure, I'll go with that. Whatever you decide, it's important to get a balanced picture. We will be making history by changing the 29 Constitution of Seoul. The second one is about the judiciary. The new constitution will remove the Supreme Court's right to vote on legislation. This is yet another point that was unanimously agreed on by all parties. Park Seoul established this rule to protect his 29 Constitution. We all know most of the judges are still his pawns. Constitutional amendments will still be very difficult to accomplish with a reform like this, particularly because we will keep the 2/3 vote system to be able to propose a change. However, the judiciary will not have the final say in the amendments. And I think that's pretty much how it works in the United States. Like the judiciary does not have any type of power when it comes to dealing with amendments or laws or anything like that. Now, again, I think, and I've mentioned this before, you can sue and you can challenge a law or an amendment or something like that, and then it can be taken all the way up to the Supreme Court if that's decided. But most of the time, especially here recently, they typically don't get involved in things like that. So you don't have situations where amendments get changed that bad. You do get kind of like interpretations based off of certain rulings they have, and then it's kind of taken to be this is how things are. But then, of course, later on, if the balance of the Supreme Court is tipped another way, that can change. So. Okay, this is already what we wanted to do. Yes, this will ensure that there won't be another politically motivated Supreme Court. Apart from these two critical points, they have other major demands. I also heard something about France, and I'm pretty somebody else could tell me about this. Don't they have like a Supreme Court or a court that's before their Supreme Court that actually decides whether or not something goes to their Supreme Court? Again, the things I wish we had here in the United States. Apart from these two critical points, they have other major demands. They want to reform the appointment procedures of the ministers. Mr. Richter clarified that the Assembly should have a say in the formation of the Council of Ministers. I'm just going to change this to the way it is in the United States, where, how does it work? What's the wording for it? It's like the president nominates, and then with the advisement of Congress, that's how it pans out. Most of the time, Congress just passes, through it, and it's not a big deal. But in a country that's like this, it could be a big deal. So, or they would see it as a big deal. That is something that a majority in our party also supports. Well, Mr. Richter also talked about abolishing the member of honor rights of Tarkin Soul that gives him absolute immunity and make him a permanent member of the Assembly. Well, that one is a controversial one. I doubt that USP would like that. Immunity of the justices, the impeachment of the president, limiting the power of the presidential decrees, all of this came up during the committee meetings. Yes, reformers expect big reforms, while our faction and the USP are not very keen on pushing changes that are too great. I'd say keeping everything in the middle ground is the safest bet. No need to agitate anyone too much. They have valid concerns that we need to look at. So, I don't know about turning around and doing the immunity of justices. Um, I don't know how much harder things are. And I can understand the immunity of justices, but I also need to get rid of Orso Hawker. I really need to get rid of Justice Hawker. Um, as far as the impeachment of presidents go, I don't have a problem with that. Limiting the power of presidential decrees, I don't have a problem with that. So, I mean, that's not an issue either. So, I do feel like we need a more balanced system. Again, a la the United States, where, you know, at least we can have a loophole where if there's an executive decree or something like that, then it can just be sent back to Congress and Congress can override it or something like that. So, I'll say they have valid concerns that we need to look at. I'll keep working with them and keep you updated, Mr. President. Well, regardless of what Mr. Rayne decides, we will need to work together to push this agenda. Now we have a better picture of your intentions, sir. I will start reaching out to contacts to make a draft that works for us. I'll present your input to the committee. In a few months, you will have a draft on your desk to make the final changes yourself. I think this was yet another fruitful meeting. Thanks for the meeting, everybody. All right. Yep. Leah is happy. Everyone is happy. Okay, so that wasn't the meeting I thought it was. That wasn't the final one. Okay, H3 construction plans have started. What else do we have? Bogsland urges calm, of course. And of course, Runeberg condemns the closure. Queen of Runeberg, Beatrice Livingston, has released a statement this morning to publicly condemn the closure of Sorlin's consulate in Dome. Thornborough has also accused Sorlin of increasing tensions in the regions. It's always funny to me how she's just like, oh, woe is me. They're so violent and angry as I march and stomp on every single country in the continent. But, you know, okay, yeah. Sorlin's the problem. And the meeting with Chief Justice Orso Hawker. This is going to be quick. Alright, so we have another decision here to ban youth organizations in order to stop the operations of youth organizations with potential links to the instability. So I am going to ban the young swords. They've caused problems. And of course I don't want to actually ban the red youth because I'm on their side. So screw the young swords. Even though in this case I can, even though there's been a lot of political violence in there, I can actually understand banning the young swords in this particular case because they kind of started all this. All right. The administration announces ban on young swords. Effective immediately, the administration has announced a ban on the anti-government organization Young Swords as a response to the recently escalated political tensions. The ban also states that it's strictly illegal and forbidden to carry symbols, clothing, and anything that can cause a person to be identified as a Young Swords member. Any person who do not abide by the new law will be risking an at least 2-year sentence depending on the severity of the crime. NFP leader Kasaro Kibner has opposed the ban strongly, while a good majority of the assembly has been content with the decision. And from the Lechavan time, Young Swords ban. After the conclusion of an investigation into the political youth organizations by the Ministry of Interior and Justice, President Rayne has acted swiftly against the Young Swords. They were blamed with links to the violent acts linked to the Circus shooting and the post-assassination incitement. Voices of anger and support were heard in the streets and the assembly as the organizations that played a key role in the rise of General Lutheran and later supported Tarquin Sol has now ceased to exist. The National Front officially condemned the act, saying this was a wrong reaction to the problem and that leaving the Red Youth without any repercussions sends the wrong message. Political analysts are assessing the situation and the shift in political spectrum. All right, so we have the finalization of the drafted constitutional changes, and we're having anti-Young Swords operations. Upon receiving the order, thousands of police officers conducted cease and desist operations against the Young Swords. Our forces closed hundreds of organizational offices and affiliated businesses all around the country. Additionally, judges have given orders to block all bank accounts and to freeze all assets. Dozens of peaceful protests from the members of the organizations were forcefully dispersed. One shootout in Jin has lightly wounded 3 officers who are being treated in the hospital. Most of the operational capacity of the entity has ceased, but cleanup operations continue. All remaining elements from the Young Swords resisting the order are now being considered as violating the law, are being arrested. So, and I think the other thing too about this is that, like, I think if I was president in this situation, I mean, as much as I would like to turn around and ban both of both of them, I do think because Swortland is a more authoritarian leaning country, you need to push back on that. So that's also another reason why I kind of justify arresting the Young Sword. So, and I'm not saying the communists didn't cause any problems and stuff like that. They did. The Red Youth is definitely a problem. But I think when it comes to, as far as like power goes, the Young Swords are far more of a problem. I mean, they're, like you already saw in one news article, they have links to the police. There's probably people in my own government that have ties to the Young Swords. I'm pretty sure there are people in the USP that are members or leaning towards the Young Swords. So that's a big problem. So you need to kind of push back onto it. So in order to get balance, sometimes you have to kind of push in the opposite direction. And that's kind of what we need here. So, finalization of the drafted constitutional changes. I was walking to my office since today was the day to edit and make the final changes for the proposal to change the Constitution of Swortland. The Reform Committee had finally bore tangible results, and the draft of the changes were about to be presented to me. I walked in the marble corridors of the palace thinking about the huge decision I was going to take. At the entrance to my office, my secretary Olivia greeted me. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Olivia. How are you today, sir? I'm about to make stressful decisions, so I'm not feeling that great. Sorry to hear. She paused before taking my coat. It looked like she had something on her mind. Mr. Rayne, can you give me a hint about your reform plans? If you ask me, taking away the judge's immunity is long overdue, but it might anger a lot of people in these halls. I'll take that into consideration. I hope you keep me informed. I'll take your coat now. You know, I kind of wonder what would happen if you don't investigate Livia or anything like that. Like, would it be a huge problem if you turn around and fight the war with Runeberg? Because, I mean, she is a spy. We do know that much. So, not long after, Peter, Lucien, and Nia arrived. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning. Time to finally get this proposal going. Peter placed a draft in front of me. After your modifications, we will be starting the process. Can we go over each of the points that are in discussion for the draft? Well, apart from the first 2 sections of decreasing the Supreme Court's authority and limiting the presidential vetoes, nothing else has been agreed on unanimously. We could start talking about Section 3. This is about the impeachment process of the president. Currently, in cases of high treason breaking the Constitution, the Supreme Court may impeach and try the president. Most reformists want the impeachment to be initiated by the Assembly. They think they do not have any power over potential rogue presidents that would abuse their power. The Assembly should have oversight over the president. This law is particularly dangerous for you in this case. We will be going against the old guard, and if we prove to be successful in the Assembly, they will be looking for anything they can declare unconstitutional to tackle you. All they need is the Supreme Court to impeach you. What if we don't succeed? The court can have me impeached for this. Yes, they're already trying to hit you since they are aware about the current wind of change, but we aim to cooperate with some of the judges to make sure that that doesn't happen. We will make sure the old guards won't control the court any longer, Mr. President. Section 4. This is regarding the appointment of ministers. Currently, the president is free to appoint anyone from the members of the Assembly. Nobody else is involved with the process. There's definitely a demand to involve the Assembly in the process. I agree. We should involve the Assembly more in the process. Some reformers suggested that the Assembly should nominate the ministers before the president approves them. Of course, according to the ratio of the parties in government, in our case, it's only us. The 5th section is about our infamous electoral threshold. Most reformers want to lower the threshold as much as possible. Mr. Richter and his PFJP definitely wants to see change on this topic. They find our 10% threshold to be undemocratic, which is something I also agree with. Yes, but this is a delicate matter. The party, and I mean not even Albin, wants us to change the threshold. They think that this would destroy our party in the long term. Not wrong. The 10% threshold is what that allowed us to control half of the assembly with only a 30% majority in the elections. Do you think it would really hurt the party? I think this is a national matter, Mr. Rayne, not a partisan one. It is a matter of both when we have the Communist Party and the Workers' Party of Blutia getting more than 5% vote in the last elections. Decreasing the threshold might mean opening their way into the assembly. Of course, that would also mean that the USP might lose its majority in the assembly, sir. If our own democracy is the reason of our downfall, we will have to accept it. I agree with you, Mr. President. Lucian continued with the next section. Section 6. This is about the presidential decrees. Reformers demand more limitation to the president's executive powers. Mr. Richter has demanded them to be completely removed. I have suggested to bring some limitations to decrees regarding their applicability. While we keep them, we should try to make sure that they will only be used in emergency situations. We could also make it dependent on an enabling act from the assembly. Sure, it will make the whole process longer, but as long as we have a majority, nothing really changes. I may need to think a bit longer about this. Sure, you have a long time before we start writing the final proposal together. Next one is section 7, term limits. Uh-oh. Yes, Tarkhan Sol governed for 20 years. It seems his magic is slowly vanishing from the minds of the people, for they believe term limits are necessary. We can't allow somebody like Sol holding on to his seat for 2 decades again. We should establish limits. Hey, if people keep electing one person, that means they really are content. The masses are scared of change. Even Sol knew he had to leave, but we will leave it to the president to decide. Again, I'm always kind of of 2 minds about that. On the one hand, I kind of agree with Peter. I'm kind of like you do. If people want to elect the same person over and over again, that should be on them. At the same time, like I said, you have so many politicians that turn around and basically their job is to be a full-time politician, and they're in office for decades and they don't do anything. So, I will take my time and seriously consider the options before settling on one. Now I'll move on to the 8th section. We are reaching the end. It is the question about the immunity of judges. While the anti-old guard sentiment is increasing, there are talks that taking away their immunity would give us authority over judiciary. I do not support taking away their power for yourself, Mr. President. The judiciary must be independent and long-lasting. While I agree that the current court members are problematic, this is no way to resolve it. The law is supposed to ensure the judiciary's independence by giving legal protection so they can't be pressured. Well, they need absolute immunity in theory, but look at what reality got us. We've got to deal with the most corrupt Chief Justice in the world, with no chance to deal with it. Yep. So again, politically wise, I don't know if I would push this much this soon. I mean, Hawker is old. He'd probably die in a couple of years, and with there actually being changes to the Constitution put forward, and if I can get this through the Supreme Court, even if I have to deal with Hawker for, the end of my term, then I could see the country moving further and further towards a better world. And in the end, we can probably change this more willingly. But as of right now, I'm not too sure. But I do think we need to deal with Hawker. And I will do whatever I have to do in order to deal with him in some form or fashion. So, while I do understand the argument that Nia is making, and in theory, she's definitely right. they still should be able to be impeached. And if I'm not mistaken, that's how it is in the United. Well, I don't think you can impeach the Supreme Court. Yeah, I don't think people on the Supreme Court can be removed. Huh. Yeah, I would have to. I'm gonna have to look that up, or someone else can put that down in the comment section. But I don't think the Supreme Court justices can be removed. And I'm pretty sure that if they can be removed, it would take a lot. Like, I'm pretty sure it'll take all of Congress and overwhelming majority in order to do it, a 2/3 majority, if that is the case, which I don't think that's ever, it might have never been a thing, but I'm not sure. I have to look it up. Anywho, they should be able to be impeached. Why do I get to be impeached, but not them? Exactly. But it would be tougher to persuade the judges with this. Miss Edmonds may not want to cooperate with you if they believe you're going to get rid of them afterwards. And the last one is the question about Soul's legacy. Basically, his member of honor law. It gave him absolute immunity even when he's retired. He is a permanent member of the assembly as well, but luckily he doesn't really attend anymore. According to the Constitution, the member of honor not only has legal immunity, but the state also covers most of their expenses as well as providing security at all times. It can only be given to someone by an absolute majority vote in the assembly and the approval of the president. That's why only Tarkhan Soul has the title. He gave it to himself right after his military coup. This law is basically made to save the colonel and has symbolic importance for Swordland because of it. We must get rid of this senseless law that protects him. He should be able to face justice for the atrocities that has taken place during his rule. This is one of those things, well, I'm not too sure about pushing it because, again, Tarkhan Soul does have a lot of power. And I feel like if we can get this constitution passed, that diminishes a lot of his power. So, I mean, we can keep the title, but take away the immunity clause. That would be enough to hold him accountable. That would be enough to hold him accountable for his actions, but why would you want to keep such a title, Mr. President? Regardless of him, I see no problem with having a special title for great heroes. Nope, that's not what I want to say. It's just a title, Miss Morgana. Morgana. Well, regardless of what Mr. Rayne decides, we will need to work together to push this agenda. Well, let's start working on the draft. All right. So I am going to limit the vetoes. According to Articles 77 and 82, the president may veto a bill by returning it to the assembly with a written statement. The articles do not contain any information on how to override a veto. As a consequence, the president has an absolute veto power that cannot be overridden by the Grand National Assembly under any circumstances. So we're going to limit the power on that. The new constitution will allow the Grand National Assembly to override a veto with a 3/5 majority, or 60% of the votes. According to Article 5 of the Constitution, an amendment may be proposed by members of the Assembly with at least 150 signatures. A 2/3 majority vote in the Grand National Assembly and a simple majority vote in the Supreme Court is required for the amendment. As a consequence, the Supreme Court, which is not a part of the elective legislation branch, has enormous power in the amendment process. And it's tried, and then we're going to remove the Supreme Court's vote. A constitutional amendment will not require the vote of the Supreme Court. This will remove the judiciary's legislative power. According to Article 17, the president of Swordland is not responsible for the actions performed in the exercise of presidential duties, except in the case of high treason or violation of the Constitution. In such cases, the president may be impeached by the Supreme Court in joint session with an absolute majority of its members. Therefore, the impeachment process only includes the Supreme Court, and it gives them great power over the executive. So yeah, we definitely want to get rid of that. Let's see. The Assembly and the Supreme Court may impeach. The president may be impeached with a 2/3 majority vote in both the Grand National Assembly and the Supreme Court. I feel like that still makes it pretty hard, and if you're conservative, that's probably like a good middle ground to kind of break. The president may be impeached with a 2/3 majority vote in the Grand National Assembly. I don't know if the Supreme Court would actually care about this unless you did the president may not be impeached. But yeah, we'll say the Assembly may impeach. Appointment of ministers. According to the Constitution, the president appoints the ministers to the Grand National. Appoints the ministers to the Council of Ministers from the elected members of the Assembly. This requires no confidence vote from the Grand National Assembly. Let's see. I can either have the Grand National Assembly nominates the ministers. The Grand National Assembly may nominate a list of ministers which the president may appoint, or I can have a confidence vote will be required. The president may nominate ministers which will require a confidence vote from the Grand National Assembly. So yes, I will go with that. That's basically what we have in the United States. According to Article 50, a political party needs a minimum of 10% of the total national vote to win seats in the Grand National Assembly. The votes of the parties who pass the threshold are redistributed proportionally, meaning USP, which currently holds the lead, would be the main beneficiary. So this is one of those ones that I'm kind of iffy about. Now, in a perfect world, I would like to do decrease threshold to 3%, but the likelihood of that passing is kind of low. It would probably take a lot for me to turn around and do, and since I don't have the actual personal wealth to do that, it's gonna be a little iffy. And I might have to end up changing this later on, because I know how Gloria works, and Gloria is going to be a pain in my ass. So I will decrease the threshold to 8%. But if Gloria is that upset about it, I think I would be okay with turning around and allowing it to just not be a thing. Because I'm going to piss off the conservatives quite a lot, because I'm going to let Monica speak at the Benfey Festival and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of contentions with the conservatives, and they're a pretty big portion, I'm assuming, of the USP, but we'll see how things go. Presidential decrees. According to Article 18 and 51, the president is able to issue decrees on political, social, and economic issues that would carry the force of law. They could not contradict the Constitution and are subject to judicial review. Therefore, the president may issue decrees in many subjects without going through the Grand National Assembly. However, the Assembly may pass legislation on the same subjects to override presidential decrees. Let's see. Decrees require an enabling act. The president will not be able to issue decrees that would carry the force of law without an enabling act from the Grand National Assembly. Remove decrees altogether. I'll do the decrees require an enabling act. I mean, I don't really think it's that big a deal. And I will issue term limits. I feel like that's fair. I mean, 2 terms. I don't really know about Swortland in this case. I think to a certain degree, Swortland not having term limits is a good thing, because I feel like you do need certain leaders that can kind of, initiate that change and carry out change, and 2 terms might not be enough. But I'll go ahead and issue it in this case, because I think the majority of the assembly wants it. And the big one, immunity of justices. The Constitution gives the justices of the Supreme Court total immunity and describes no procedure of impeachment, making them untouchable by other branches of government. Judges can be impeached by the Assembly. The Supreme Court justices may be proposed to be impeached on the legal grounds of unconstitutional behavior. A valid impeachment proposal will require a 2/3 majority decision of the Grand National Assembly to impeach the individual justice. And I feel like that's fair. So on the one hand, it's just like, I understand what Morgan is saying, but I feel like that's a very fair and reasonable thing to turn around and have. But, it is what it is. Honorary membership of Tarquin Sol. Article 99 of the Constitution defines the member of honor title, its appointment procedure, as well as the rights their members may exercise. A member of honor has absolute immunity and is considered to be a permanent member of the Grand National Assembly. They are given control of their own personal security team provided by the state's presidential guards. A member is also eligible to live in a special private residence provided by the state for free. The only person who holds the title is Tarquin Sol. I kind of wish I would have asked Morgan about what she would have felt about every president having the honorary title. But Article 99 and the member of honor title will be removed from the Constitution. just say the immunity will be abolished. So yeah, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Is that fine? 'Cause I think this is completely getting rid of it. Yeah, this is completely getting rid of it, and this is just abolishing the immunity. And I am not sure about this, and I feel very weird about this because this is going to be so much harder this time around. But yeah, let's get to it. After I made the final changes for the proposal, I showed it to my team. They read the changes and discussed it amongst themselves. Lucien spoke afterwards. Looks like the amendments are ready to be proposed, but I have to say this too. The new electoral threshold will be really difficult for the party to accept. The guys are not fond of that idea. That's true. It'll be tough to get all of their support. Some of our members may try to openly fight against this. I'm prepared to reconsider if it comes to that. We'll all do our best to make it work, sir. Any other comments before we proceed? I will say that I do not agree with the new law that gives the Assembly the power to impeach the judges of the Supreme Court. I'm also against the Chief Justice and his obstructionist behavior, but even if we get rid of all of them, the new judges will be less independent with this law. They will be scared to go against the administration when it's needed. They need their protection to do their job. Otherwise, the new ones will be pawns just like Sol's old guard. But it's more important that we get rid of the old guard, Miss Morgana. After the obstacles are gone, we can strive to make it better. However, he turned to me. You have to be careful, Anton. I'm sure you will be fine, but with all that's happening out there, we'll need to prepare against these threats one way or the other. The Constitution is not yet changed. We'll prepare in the meantime. Well, I think we can proceed now. I will personally work on the wording of the proposal with my hand-picked legal experts. With Miss Morgana's reputation as the most experienced attorney, this proposal will be bulletproof. Chief Justice Orso will have a hard time convincing others to oppose it. In the meantime, you must introduce the proposal to our party. You will need to get them to back us if we want it to pass the Assembly. Sir, I advise you to first talk to the leaders of both conservative and reformist wings of the party. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Clavin supports the reforms already. Miss Tory will be the real problem. She became the real heavyweight after we left for the executive. Any advice in regards to dealing with them? As Mr. Vector said, Mr. Clavin will probably be easier to persuade. We need to unite the party under this, so his support is vital. Miss Gloria will be tougher to break. The problem is that she's capable of turning the moderates and the conservatives against us. As much as I don't want to say this, if she makes demands to change the proposal, you may need to give in. Understood. Which means I'm probably going to end up having to turn around and get rid of the election threshold, which again, I'm fine with. I don't have that much of a problem with. I wish it was different, but for right now, I'll be okay with. And if I were in a re-election situation, I think I would probably work to either trying to have some type of big alliance with the PFJP or try and convince the PFJP to work with the communists or something like that. But for right now, that might just, if it comes to that, fine. Wish you good luck with the party, sir. I think we can end the meeting here. We all shook hands and they left the room. All right, the Reform Committee started preparations. Vice President Vectern reported that along with Lucien Gallard, the committee has started working on the written aspects of the package as per the needs outlined previously. They will soon get the legal team involved to complete the writing process. The needed 150 signatures for the proposal has started to be collected within the USP. Okay, sort them today. And of course, you can already see how these things work. Richter's victory over Rayne. Our sources informed us that the plan is underway by the government to start the drafting of the reform package. The Rayne administration has reached out to the PFJP, led by Franz Richter, despite his history of criticizing and opposing the USP, even calling Rayne yet another pawn that was put forward as candidate during the campaign election in 1953. It is the first time in a USP government that a president is cornered to work with his unapologetic rivals to this extent. If anything significant can come out of this collaboration, it is yet to be seen. If USP isn't capable of showing strength like it used to, and forced to accept the demands of their longtime rivals, perhaps it is time to realize that their time has passed. We are doubtful if President Rayne can protect the wishes of the USP voters, let alone display enough political power to make meaningful changes in our country. And President Rayne takes sides. Today, at a shocking announcement, the president of Swordland decided to ban the Young Swords, one of the most popular political youth organizations, which also defended the Republic from foreign political influences. President Rayne claimed there was enough evidence following the state investigation to ban the political organization from operating in the country, but an anonymous source inside the administration revealed that President Rayne was an old Red Youth activist during university. Huh. I didn't think they would bring that up, but all right. The action raises many questions about the political agenda and the future plans of the president and his administration. Is a communist foundation being laid down in Swordland for a big change in the second term? Conservative USP MPs are calling this a negative turning point for the future of the United Swordland Party. Maybe peace and balance can return in the future, but for now, the arbitrary manipulation has caused more harm. So, as you can see, Garanti is already putting in work. And there's the whole thing about the annual Benfey Festival. So we have the dinner with the business council members, and that's it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop this right now because this video has been going on, for me at least, for a couple hours, and I have a lot of editing to do with this, a lot of parts I need to cut out. So yeah, this might end up being probably like, it might be about an hour because I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot that I need to cut out. But yeah, so thank you for watching. If you like the video, like the video. If you want to see more stuff like this, then subscribe. I have plenty of stuff on my channel, and I have plenty of stuff on the way. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comment section because I am always keeping an eye on them. They go directly to my phone, and I do try and respond back as quickly as I possibly can. If you want to talk politics, we know we can. If you want to just throw me some tips about how to proceed forward, I will definitely appreciate that, because as much as I have played this game in the past, this is a different ballpark this time around. So I want this to be successful, but I am very nervous because I actually don't know if this is going to be okay this time around. Whereas the other times I felt pretty confident. But this time around, I do not feel confident about this at all. So, anywho, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See ya.